What's up guys, Paul Salmon here. Let's talk about shutting down your rotorcraft, whether it's helicopter or gyroplane, without chopping off the tail. And that's coming up next. So you're on approach and you've got some weather coming in, you're trying to get it on the ground before it arrives. Unfortunately, you don't quite make it, so suddenly you find yourself on the ground, gust front comes through and you're having to deal with 40 to maybe even 60 mile an hour winds. So how are you going to shut the aircraft down? Well, let's talk about that. I've got some recommendations to make. Okay guys, we're going to go over a very quick review of the symmetry of lift. And you must understand the symmetry of lift to get the concept on knowing which way to shut down the blades, or during startup under high wind conditions. Same thing, whether you're shutting the blades down or you're starting the helicopter up, you need to have wind coming from the appropriate direction. Everyone was taught to shut the aircraft down and start the aircraft with the nose pointing directly into the wind. Well, I'm going to show you that maybe that's not the best way to do it. And I'll show you why. Okay, so for a quick review of the symmetry of lift, we're going to point it right into the wind here. The blade, as it's coming around from here, around this way, this becomes the retreating side. Right? As the blade passes over the tail and comes forward, this is the advancing side. Right? Okay, so how does the helicopter compensate for dissymmetry of lift? Well, as the advancing blade comes around, the advancing blade is going to teeter up, and the retreating blade is going to teeter down. How much do they teeter? They teeter the amount necessary to produce the same amount of lift between the advancing and the retreating half of the rotor disc. Okay? So what three things cause an increase in the amount of flapping or teetering to have to occur? Number one, an increase in airspeed. An increase in airspeed will cause an increase in the amount of flapping. Number two, an increase in the angle of attack, either of each of the individual blades or the rotor disc itself. If you increase the angle of attack, you will increase the amount of lift produced and increase the amount of teetering. And third, rotor RPM. If rotor RPM decreases, the amount of flapping or teetering has to increase. If you just remember those three things, an increase in airspeed, an increase in angle of attack, and a decrease in rotor RPM all produce an increase in the amount of teetering that has to occur. So let's talk about what would be the absolute worst way to shut down the blades on a helicopter or gyroplane, or to start up the blades on either helicopter or gyroplane. And that would be with a left crosswind. Now this is on US made helicopters that the blades turn the correct direction to the left. All right. If you've got one of those US made gems and you're shutting it down or starting it up, you never ever want a left crosswind coming at the aircraft for startup. And the reason being is because when it's sitting here like this and the wind direction is coming directly at it, from right here to here is the retreating side. And remember, the blade is going to teeter down on the retreating side. So as you're starting it up, if you have a significant wind from the left, as this blade starts to rotate, and it will flex down and can actually hit the tail boom and take out your tail boom. Right? What's happening on the advancing side is, again, the blade teeters up on the advancing side. You got the advancing blade teetering up, the retreating blade teetering down, and you can definitely take out your tail boom if you start it with a significant left crosswind. This is air direction that you never want to start the helicopter or gyroplane up, start the blades turning with a left crosswind. Right? All right, let's look at a right crosswind. Here's your right crosswind. As the blades come around, so wind's coming directly at the helicopter. As this blade comes around, this is the retreating side, and the blade is going to flex down like this. As the advancing blade comes around, it's going to flex up over the tail boom. All right. Where it's flexing down in the front on the retreating side, there is nothing to hit and nothing to be damaged out here. All right. So starting the helicopter up with a direct right crosswind is going to produce the blades teetering down over the nose where there's nothing to be damaged, and up, providing even more clearance over the tail, right, and much less likely to get the tail boom with the blades as they're coming around. Right? So now if you start it into the wind like this, you're going to get a significant amount of teetering down, and the blades typically will teeter up and clear the tail boom. And that's true about 99% of the time. But in severe winds, I mean severe winds, you can have the blade, the mast can actually begin to rock somewhat, and you can get a rotation around where the blades can actually impact the tailboom and damage your tailboom. Now, if you're flying a European designed aircraft where the blades turn to the right, such as the BK or MBB 105, whatever, then you never want to start the aircraft up with a right crosswind. In fact, doing a little bit of research, I found several tailboom strikes with BKs. One in particular, the aircraft was actually facing about 180, and the winds were coming from 300 degrees, which is a 60-degree quartering tailwind from the right, and they got into the tailboom during startup, and this was pretty unhandy. It was on a hospital helipad, and they had to end up getting a crane to move the aircraft off the helipad with. But there have been several cases of startup or shutdown where the blades will get into the upright on the tailboom and damage the tailboom with a significant right crosswind on a European designed aircraft that the blades go to the right. Okay, so let's talk about shifting gusting winds. All right, let's say that you're one of the old-fashioned guys. You want to start it with the nose directly into the wind, and that's okay. But let's say that your wind report, your surface winds are 300 shifting to 360 at 30 knots. 300 shifting to 360 back and forth. Where are you going to put the nose? You want to line it up on 360 and start it up? Well, if you do that and the wind shifts around to 300, you now have a significant left crosswind and flirt with the chance of getting into your tailboom and taking it out. Right? How about you turn the aircraft into 300 degrees? Now, if the wind shifts to 360, it's a right crosswind, which doesn't provide any problems at all. In fact, would be advantageous. So if you've got shifting winds, you want to be careful that you line the aircraft up so that if the winds were to shift and significant winds were to shift, you don't get some component of a left crosswind during startup or shutdown. Okay guys, let's say that you come out to fly the aircraft and someone has parked the aircraft and positioned it so that you have a relatively strong left crosswind on the aircraft that's sitting out on the ramp. What would you like to do about it? Well, the easiest thing to do about it is put it up on the wheels and turn it. Turn it into the wind. If you got a little bit of a right crosswind, even better, all right? But never forget, you got wheels, all right, which is one of the advantages of taking your wheels with you. When you fly off someplace, it's always, I can think of about 10 other advantages of having the wheels with you, but having the wheels with you so that you can turn the aircraft in case it gets parked and there's a significant wind shift, you can reposition the aircraft in the correct direction. Okay guys, so what did we learn with this? We learned that you never want to start a US-made helicopter with a strong left crosswind. You don't want to start a European-designed aircraft that the blades turn to the right with a strong right crosswind. And all this applies the same for gyroplanes. If you have a gyroplane and the blades turn to the left, you want to avoid starting or shutting down the aircraft with a significant left crosswind. And if you have a gyroplane that the blades turn to the right, you want to avoid a right crosswind, just the same. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video.